In the digital age we live in, information is everywhere. From the moment we wake up until the moment we go back to sleep, our brains are constantly soaking up information, whether that's negative news, inspirational quotes, cat videos. You get the idea. After consuming so much, we are exhausted towards the end of our days, which can lead us to consume even more. This phenomenon is called information overload, and it impacts many of us. This simple yet powerful graph illustrates how our decision making is affected by the amount of information we take in over the course of a day. L star represents the information load that corresponds with the best decision making, D star. Problems arise when we end up on the right side of L star early on in the day. This explains why our capacity for making good decisions gets worse throughout the day. We choose to sit down and watch TV instead of going to the gym or reading a book after a certain time in the day because our decision making is getting progressively worse. You might be wondering, how come our decision making is so poor at the start of the day? In reality, it isn't, because most of us consume enough information within the first couple of minutes of the day to get us past this region. What this boils down to is we want to stay in this region for the majority of the day to make the best decisions. So how do we do this? The simplest yet most effective tactic is to cut down or severely limit any kind of information that doesn't serve you in any way. For me, this was most social media, most news, and mindless YouTube videos. Basically anything that doesn't bring me closer to or is detrimental to my goals and self-development. However, social media is a gray area because there is a lot of useful information on it and potential connection with others, but let's be honest, that's not why most of us use it. As a result, I deleted Instagram but kept Reddit because I can personalize the type of information I receive on Reddit much more than I can on Instagram. I only join subreddits that give me more insight on something that I've been working on. An example of this is a subreddit called Intermittent Fasting. I've been intermittent fasting for over a year now, and I'm always looking for ways to improve my process, which this subreddit supplies. Cutting out information that didn't serve me but just distracted me had a profound impact on my energy levels and my decision making throughout the day. I changed the type of content I was consuming a couple months back. Instead of playing video games, I'd listen to an audiobook. Instead of watching Netflix, I'd watch a TED Talk. I had transferred nearly all of my information input to self-development content. Problem solved, right? Wrong. I became obsessed with learning about self-development. I listened to more podcasts, audiobooks, and TED Talks about self-development than I could count. I'd listen to a podcast about eliminating distractions and then follow it up with an interview about meditation. On and on it went, to the point where I was retaining little information and applying close to none. This cycle continued until I talked to a close friend of mine about how I was learning lots of new things, but struggling at applying any of them. He's also passionate about self-development, and it seemed like he was actually applying the stuff that he was learning. He told me that this is common amongst people who get into self-development. He called it mental masturbation. The second he said that, it all made sense. I had somehow convinced myself that consuming copious amounts of content that was designed to help me become my best version would somehow automatically do that without any effort on my part. In reality, small bits of information go a long way when applied, and on the contrary, virtually unlimited amounts of information are meaningless without action. After this realization, I started consuming less and creating more. Instead of watching 10 videos on bench press tips, I benched. Instead of listening to a podcast on how to eliminate distractions, I simply put my phone on the other side of the room when I was working on something. I began to create habits rather than just think about potentially creating them. I still have a steady diet of self-development content, but I only consume it at certain times, like when I'm driving or making food. Basically, anytime I'm doing a task that is virtually autonomous, but still needs to get done, so I can learn something at the same time. This principle showed me how much time we really have when we're creating instead of constantly consuming, even if what we're consuming is intended to help us. We all have some idea of how to improve ourselves, it's applying it that's the hard part. Another concept that I've adopted is writing down anything that might have potential value in the future. Try and remember exactly what you were thinking about before you clicked on this video. Chances are you won't be able to. Our brains are simply not designed to do this. An easy way to avoid this frustration is simply writing down anything worth remembering. This can be an idea from an audiobook that resonates with you, or something new to make for dinner. Jot it down. This process is a safeguard that eliminates any possible frustration or resentment for forgetting an idea. I use Google Docs for this because I can access it from any of my devices. I listen to less podcasts and watch less YouTube videos, but I remember more applicable information out of each one because I take notes. By now you might be saying, that's great and all, but it's really hard to stay off my phone. I totally get it. Even though I'm better at controlling the impulse to grab my phone than I used to be, it's still a daily battle. What has helped me not succumb to my impulses is to genuinely understand that social media and gaming apps and the rest of the junk on our devices is literally designed to keep us on them as long as possible, because that's what makes companies money. I was tired of being exploited by companies just so they could make a dime off my addiction. I was tired of spending my valuable time on things that just don't matter to me. This perspective shift made it a whole lot easier at being consistent at limiting my device usage and limiting the information input I consume to things that do serve me. With these adjustments to your routine, hopefully you can decrease your information load without missing out on any learning, which will result in better decision making, more time, and higher energy levels throughout your day. Thanks for watching. I really hope that you got something useful out of this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because it really does help me grow this channel. And leave a like with some feedback, because that'll give me a good idea of how I could improve the quality of my content. I'll see you on the next one.